This
Just wanted
conference
to,
will now be recorded.
and with that, we'll start recording the presentation today. So first of all, I just wanted to say hello to everybody. For those that I haven't met, my name is Chris Watson, Director of Communications for the Athletic Association. A couple other people I'm going to introduce in just a moment, and we'll kind of go through the ground rules, if you will, of what we're going to do this afternoon. We hope this presentation and question and answer session takes about an hour, but certainly we want to get your questions answered. So we're glad to have you with us. We're glad to have Omari with us, and glad you could carve out some time on a Sunday. So again, any questions you have, we're going to go over how this is going to work, but I want to introduce somebody you guys should all know from the association, our Assistant Director, Kristen J.
Thanks, Chris. I just want to welcome everybody. I really appreciate you being here. Captains Club started a couple years ago. It's really about student athlete development, and we were fortunate enough to have Omari Pearson be a part of that this year. And I will just say it's been a pleasure to work with him, and I'm really excited for you guys to interact with him tonight. And I'll just hand it over to Chris to take it from here. And thanks for everybody for being here.
Thanks, Kristen, and thanks for getting everybody together, setting it all up, and obviously getting partnered with Omari for the series of videos we've already released, which I think were just tremendous, and then obviously tonight's session, which I'm really excited about. So with that, obviously you guys all should know by now, I hope you've seen the workshop videos that we put on already with Omari Pearson from Passion to Purpose. And Omari, it's been a great partnership. It's been eye-opening to watch your videos. They taught me a lot. I can only imagine what the young men and women learn from it. So nice to see you. Thanks for everything, and I'm really looking forward to tonight.
Absolutely, man. It's been an absolute pleasure. Couldn't have imagined working with two better people. Chris, you and Kristen have done an amazing job, and kudos also to your director of athletics as well, man, for even giving me this opportunity. I don't take it lightly, and I definitely appreciate it to be able to speak to other kids.
Looking forward to tonight, and obviously I think we're going to get a lot out of it. So what we're going to do now, guys, anybody joining us via the phone, anybody joining us via GoToMeeting with the ability to turn your camera on, here's what we're going to say. As you guys know how these meetings work, please mute your device, whether you're on the phone or you're on your computer. Please mute yourself. Background noise is the enemy of all these presentations. So if you could just go ahead and mute yourself from start to finish until you're called on, that would be tremendously helpful. With this GoToMeeting that we're going to utilize, we have the ability to have 25 cameras active at any time. So as I look at the screen, I think Omari and I are the only ones with our cameras on. What I would like you to do is, when you're called on, when your question is called on, please turn your camera on. You can speak directly to Omari. I don't need to interact with you guys. I want you to have that interaction. So feel free to keep your camera off for the time being until your question or your name is called on, and then that'll be your time to shine. And just like most of these events that we've done for anything else, I'm going to ask you guys, put your questions in the chat. You can go ahead and load the chat up now with any questions you may have for Omari. I know we had talked ahead of time about some of the things we wanted to talk about. So if you want to put your questions in the chat, this is what I'd like you to do. You don't have to put in your whole question for Omari, start to finish. Just put in the topic you want to talk about. I'll see your name, where you're from. I've got the list, obviously, of what section you're from. Just put the topic into the chat that you would like. Let us know what you want to talk about. I'll call on you. You'll ask your question to Omari, and that's the way we'll get off and running. So if you can start putting your topics of things you want to talk about in the chat now, that would be tremendously helpful. And I'll call on you as we go. And Kristen, flag me down if I miss. I don't have anything as of yet, correct?
Yeah, so what I want to just reiterate is that everybody that has a question, just type your name, your topic, what section you're from in the chat so we know where you're from. Some of the Student Athlete Advisory Committee members, they already sent me questions. Please, again, we're going to go kind of in order. And I think Lauren Kelly has her first question. So Chris, you can go right ahead.
All right, good stuff, Lauren. Good work. So while I will turn it over to you, Lauren, if you want to go ahead and turn your camera on, you can specifically ask your question or unmute yourself if you're on the phone, Lauren, to Omari, and I'll have you guys interact, and I'll just kind of play mediator and navigator as we go. So Lauren, go ahead.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, hi, Mr. Pearson.
I enjoyed all of the videos. They were great and super inspirational. But my question for you is was there anyone specifically who inspired you to start this program?
Actually, it wasn't anyone specifically. It really was me. I created Passion and Purpose in 2009 after transitioning from sports because I really didn't have a plan. I didn't know what I was going to do outside of sports because it had been my life. Like many of you all, most of you probably started playing sports far before I did. But from 16 to 29, all I did was sports. That was my life, literally. Like the old shirts everyone used to wear saying basketball is life. It really was my life. And so when I shifted from athlete to civilian, like I didn't know how to maximize that transition, nor did I really prepare for it. And the title passion is an uncontrollable emotion. Purpose is the reason for which something exists. So when you combine something that's uncontrollable and passionate in your energy with direction, then now you have a plan. And so my processing and going through, what am I going to do beyond sports? How do I create a career? And then even more importantly, how do I make sure people like yourself, Lauren, have a plan? And so hence passion to purpose.
And thank you for those videos because a lot of that advice is stuff that we probably wouldn't have gotten until a little bit later in our lives. So thank you for that.
I appreciate it. I'm humbled that it helped, man. That's always good to hear. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Lauren. Appreciate it. We have other questions in the chat. I know Kristen had talked about it, but if you already submitted a question to Kristen this week or last week, go ahead and put yourself in the chat so that we can follow along and kind of just keep things moving, if you will. Emma had asked a question, and I'll let her ask it. About the mentorship process, Omari, and I know that was a video you dedicated one whole piece to. So I'll let Emma ask that question. Emma, you want to turn your camera on and go?
Yeah, hang on a minute.
No worries. Take your time. I know technology has a mind of its own.
Okay, did that work?
Yep, I see you. There you go.
Okay, perfect. So my question was, after watching your mentorship video, I kind of there was one part that kind of stuck out to me, and that was how other people's goals kind of influence yours. Would you be able to elaborate on that? I really liked that point.
Yeah, so the old adage everyone talks about, birds of a feather flock together. You probably had your parents tell you that before, or grandparents or someone along the journey, right? What I began realizing is that the people in which you surround yourself with have a major influence. Obviously, as a leader, you are a leader. You're leading your teammates, you're leading your peers, you're leading your community, even right now. But if we're not conscious of how we surround ourselves with people who are going to develop us, push us, motivate us, we can find ourselves being led in directions that we don't necessarily want to go. And so for me, it's always being conscious of who's in my surroundings, being conscious that as a leader, too much is given, much is required, meaning that I have to make sure I'm holding myself to a higher standard, even though I'm not perfect. And with that being said, I also have to be honest and transparent enough to admit when I'm wrong or when I made a shortcoming, so I can now get myself back on track towards my goals.
Okay, thank you.
No problem at all. No problem at all. Good
Thanks,
question.
Emma. Appreciate it. Go to Aiden in section 1. Aiden, you were next up in the chat, so I'll have you go next, and then Nora, you'll be on deck. Go ahead, Aiden.
Perfect. So nice to meet you, Mr. Pearson. One question I had after your mentorship video was, what are the best ways to reach out in the age of COVID to mentors? Because I know that's definitely a new kind of way of a problem with, you want to find these mentors, but now in the age of COVID, it's just really hard to do that. So kind of what is the best way to reach out?
So I apologize too, Aiden, and Emma, and also the young lady before Emma, I apologize. I always want to know your sports too. So if you can share with me what your sport is, I greatly appreciate it, man. I like to assume, because I'm looking at your shoulders, even though it's like a blurry picture, you look like a football or a wrestler. So I'm guessing one of those two sports.
I'm actually a baseball and basketball.
Wow. So take off the hoodie, man. I see shoulders, man. I see shoulders. All right. So you're baseball and basketball. Emma, what's your sport? I'm sorry. And I'm going to get to your question too, Aiden.
I swim.
Oh man. God bless you. Swimming. Punishment. When coaches made me swim, I'm like, no. And what about you, man?
I swim as well.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I look, swimming and soccer, just on a quick side note, like are the most respected sports for me ever. As a basketball player, anybody who gets to the pool and swims for 6 hours straight, you are my hero. And anyone who runs up and down the field with no timeouts, I will be faking injuries all the time. But thank you so much, Janet. So Aiden, back to your question. And this is the funny part, right? Your generation has a connotation of sliding in someone's DM in a different meaning, right? But for you, you have access to mentors at a level that me and Chris and everyone else didn't have, like because you all can directly contact people. Now, as minors, I'm gonna leave with this precursor. Your parents need to be aware of who DM you're sliding into before you slide in their DM. I gotta say that because if not, you're gonna be saying Mr. Pearson told me to reach out and slide in someone's DM. But with that being said, do your research. So, what part of New York do you live in, Aiden?
I'm from New Rochelle, so Westchester County.
I'm very familiar with New Rochelle. I know a couple basketball players that came from New Rochelle back in the day. And my college coach, Bill Bano, who's the assistant coach at the Pacers, is from New Rochelle. So I'm very familiar. With that being said, I can Google top doctors in New Rochelle, top architectural firms in New Rochelle. It will show me what those firms are. I can go to their pages and see who works there and bios that I see. Then I can now take that name and Google that name. And that name will show me on Instagram. I can type that name into Instagram or to a Twitter feed and see their page. Now, talk to my parents. Hey, mom, dad, you mind if I reach out to this person? They say yes. I can slide them a message and say, hey, by the way, my name is Aiden. I go to blank high school and I play these sports. I'm an honor student. I'm a part of the SAC. And I'm just curious if you could give me advice. You never know what happens. One of the things that I've learned is that you can't hit what you don't swing at, right? So if you don't put yourself in a position to be turned down, you never find out if they're willing to help. And I'd rather swing and miss than not swing at all. And then additionally, I will say between social media, between books, and between utilizing YouTube, it could be a great benefit. YouTube is positive in very many ways because I can find anything I want on there positively or negatively. Social media gives me direct access to certain people where I can literally send them a message privately and they may respond. I will say this too, the higher the food chain that you reach out to, the slower the response. So don't take it personal. If you send a message to someone and they respond back 2 months later, it's not personal, right? I would personally create your top 10 list, like top 10 people in New Rochelle you want to connect with. And right now, with you being a student athlete, you're a rock star in your community. So it's an easy plug and play. First thing, lead with the academic side of yourself, and then follow up with the athletic side of yourself. Because to anyone who's a professional, sharing the academic sides tells me you're serious about where you're going in your future. Sharing the athletic side tells me that you're also passionate and you're learning teamwork and life skills and you're able to juggle. And you may find a correlation with the person in which you're reaching out to that may be from the same high school you went to. And that now becomes an added benefit. Additionally, I would say utilize your coaches. Your coaches and your athletic director can be huge resources because in your community, there are many agents that's come through their school. Their name may be different, but they're now attorneys, they're now architects, they're now engineers. They may have moved on outside of New Rochelle and live in other parts of the country, but they went to your high school and they maintained a relationship with those coaches. And so now you sharing what you want to do. Your coach is like, oh, perfect, Aiden, I know exactly. And now having that person reach out for you, advocating for you now creates validation of who you are, even at a greater level. Because if your coach calls me and he was my coach, now we have an instant bond. So if I played basketball at your high school and our coach called me and said, hey, Omari, I need to talk to Aiden tomorrow, I'm like, all right, coach, give him my number. Just that simple. But you have to begin utilizing what's in your hand and then expand from what's in your hand going to the next level. So I gave you a lot in there. I hope that helped a little bit. The first piece, I would say start with your coaches and your athletic directors, and then make sure you have a list of people who you think you want to connect with in your community and go from there.
Okay. All
Thank
right.
you so much. That's a lot.
Good stuff. Aiden, thank you. Appreciate it. Nora from Section 5 is on deck, and I like her question a lot, and I'll let her be the one to ask it. But obviously, in the age of COVID, I think we're all mentally worn down is probably the best way to put it, because this has been going on a lot longer than any of us ever anticipated. So Nora, Do you want to jump on, turn your camera on, and go with Omari? There you go.
Hi, it's so nice to meet you. First of all, I'm Nora. I'm a distance runner, so cross country, indoor, outdoor track. Um, so yeah, my question, I guess, I really found your video talking about your why. Like, I thought that was really impactful and really great. So I guess just kind of going off of that, how do you specifically really keep that super strong, especially in this kind of tough pandemic time that we're in right now?
So I will tell you, in COVID, it's interesting, right? So your team of people around you, and I consider your friends your team, your family, your mom, your dad, your uncles, your I call your friends or your extended family that you get to choose per se. All of those individuals around you are extremely important in times like this, because if you don't have the right team around it, you will find yourself wandering mentally in places that you probably shouldn't be going to, right? And I will say for me during COVID, that has been extremely important. Prior to this conversation I just had with you all now, I was on the phone with my old high school coach for 2 hours, literally 2 hours. Like, I was supposed to be taking a nap getting ready for this. And he was like, he called me up and we're having this conversation and dialogue. And I felt more invigorated by his conversation than I would have by taking a nap. And it's because that type of thing and that support is extremely important. And also for me personally with my why, if I start wondering off of what my passions are, I begin feeling fatigue. Like, you ever felt like for you're such a distance runner, running to you is pretty much natural. Like, it's almost like breathing, right? Whereas to me, like, running is real. Like, I run my mile to 2 miles and I'm like, I feel like I just had like a full body workout for the rest of my life. But that's because it's not my natural. And so when you're in your natural, you flow. There's a different level of, almost like I say, like grace that you have because you're able to endure it because it's normal to you. Whereas if I would probably take you and put you in a swimming pool and make you swim for 5 hours, you might be like, oh my God, Mr. Pierce, I quit. This ain't my thing, because it's outside of what you normally do. So your why in COVID is extremely important. Your team is extremely important, but making sure you're combining your team and utilizing them for the resource they are and being honest with them when you feel yourself being heavy will be extremely important with you as you're transitioning through this time.
Awesome.
And
Thank you so much.
I'm jealous of you on the cross country thing. I'm trying to get there. I'm gonna get a half a marathon in one day.
All of you are more far along than I am. Godspeed to all of you. Kendall, I'll have you go next. Kendall put one in the chat. I'm gonna leave it to her. This could go a lot of different ways. Her question just said life. She put life, so I'll let Kendall ask what about life she wants to know.
I meant to type in life as a collegiate athlete, but I accidentally hit send before I got to type the whole thing out. So that's what that was supposed to be. But I was wondering, Mr. Pearson, how you balanced your schedule as a collegiate athlete.
Okay, no problem. And Kendall, what's your sport?
I play soccer, basketball, and softball.
Gosh, like, yeah, you're serious. You're an athlete. Like, get me out of the house. I'm not gonna be home ever.
Basically, yes.
Awesome. So I will say, as a collegiate athlete, it's very interesting. You have so much free time. And if you can't manage time well in high school, college as a collegiate athlete is very, very, very difficult, because you have so much just freedom. Like, I may have my Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule, maybe 2 classes, and then my Tuesday and Thursday, maybe 3 classes. And those classes may range anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half of class time. And then that now means I have the rest of my day into practice, which is 2 hours because of NCAA rules. And then I have another 30 minutes to an hour in the weight room. So it's like all of that time has to be maximized. One of the things that I began doing my sophomore year, I will tell you, my freshman year, I wasn't that smart. But my sophomore year, I woke up. By my sophomore year, I began writing my schedule out on paper. So I would have, 6 o'clock, wake up in the morning, go for a run, come back home, go back to sleep before my first class. Then I would go take my shower, hopefully in the morning, take a shower, go to class, then go back from class, I would have my weights. I would have my routine so laid out that by my junior year, that was normal. Like, it was just clockwork. I didn't have to write it down anymore. My body kind of like felt weird when I didn't stick to my schedule. But I will say right now, as a high school student, begin maximizing your time, begin scheduling your time, literally writing on paper when you're going to study, write on paper when you're going to read, write on paper when you're just going to relax. Like, there's nothing I'm going to do in this time period. I don't care what's going on. This is my chill time, right? And that will keep you on track, and it will also correlate in life. Like if you're very organized with time management, oh my gosh, like that's half the battle, to be very real with you.
Thank you so much. That's very helpful.
No problem. Great question.
Thanks, Kendall. Carly, you'll come up next. Aiden P. from Section 7, you'll be on deck. So Carly, in Section 6, if you want to jump on, I'll let you ask your question. But I know as we kind of set up, Aiden or Omari, in one of the videos, you kind of talked about, where you were in college as an athlete to where you are as a professional. And I think Carly kind of wants to know how that happened. Go ahead, Carly.
Hi, I'm Carly. I play volleyball and basketball, and I really liked the college and career mapping video. I thought that was very helpful. And my question just is, was there ever a moment in college when you thought that you didn't want to do the job you originally had thought you wanted to do?
Yes, and yes, and yes. I initially went to college thinking I was going to major and do criminal justice. Took a class called Deaf and Dying that changed my whole perspective of criminal justice, where I had to go into a freezer where there were people who were no longer here anymore. And that changed my perspective on what I wanted to pursue. I also had a teacher who was a social scientist by nature, amazing, charismatic, cared about people, was a social entrepreneur. At that time, people didn't say the word social entrepreneur. And so I was like, wow, I like what he does, but I didn't know what that was. As I retired from sports, I ended up trying to figure out what that was, and that was a process. But once I found that I could help people and have a business, like it was a world, this nonprofit world where you actually could help people and do well by helping people, I was like, yes, I can make money. Let's do it. And it just went from there. But I will say it was a lot of trial and error. I'm a first generational college graduate for my family. And because of that, I had to like navigate and bump my head unnecessarily. So this bald head has a lot of bumps on it because I just didn't know. And now looking forward and passing it forward, hopefully that your generation and students I speak with now are able to begin thinking through that process in high school and even in middle school.
Cool, thank you.
Wow, pleasure meeting you.
Thanks, Carly. Aiden from Section 7, you're up, and then we'll put Carly from Section 11 on deck. So Aiden P., go ahead.
All right, pleasure to meet you, Mr. Pearson. So my question, well, actually, just want to let you know, I'm a football player as well.
All shoulders like this. I'm like, he got to be a football player. If I got the other one wrong, I'm like, what's a wrestler or a football player?
For sure. So my question, it's leaning toward positivity. My school just announced last week that, like our fall sports season, we are not going to have any sports at all for the winter. And I think in particular, this pertains to the seniors in my school more than anyone else. Because a lot of them have been working for so long and so many years to get to this point. Oh, this is my senior year, my sport, this is my time, and they're not going to be able to experience any of that. And they seemed really down lately and really haven't had any motivation towards school, coming to school, performing well in school. And I guess what would be a good way to create some positive vibes in the school environment to help them maybe get a little bit better of a senior year?
Absolutely. So one, that my heart goes out for every senior right now, because one of the things I'll never forget, my senior year in my locker room after losing our first game, or our last game rather, and watching people cry, right? That's like the closure. Like, cause some people know they're going to play in college. Some people know that's the last game they'll probably ever play, but there's still closure. Your generation is kind of in like no man's land or no woman's land. Like, it's like, what's next? And you don't have any steps to do it. From a positivity standpoint, what my recommendation will be is two things. One, not allowing them to wallow in their self-pity, but really thinking about what do you want to do? Like, seriously, like, because at the end of the day, sports ends for everybody. You know, as amazing as LeBron is, he probably will be done in the next 4 years. Like, he's a great athlete, but I don't see LeBron at 45 still dunking on people. Now, it's possible. If it happens, like, that's a miracle. But eventually it has to end, right? And so having that rainbow at the end of your storm or your journey only keeps you progressing. What normally happens for most of my seniors is that sports was their A, B, and C plan. So now that it's removed, I have no idea what I want to do. So from a positive standpoint, if your homeboys or your homegirls are, hey, what are you going to do, man? Like, what are you going to major in college? Shifting that conversation outside of sports will help them begin thinking through things and begin seeing that, okay, I am possibly still going to college. I still have this opportunity to go to this trade school. There are careers that's going to pay me here. By the way, I can still play club sports this year, possibly in my state, if my state is still allowing me. By the way, I also may be able to still, if I don't get a scholarship here this year, I can possibly go to a junior college and play there, or I can walk on at a 4-year school. There's so many different ways to look at it, but it's really hard to look at it when you're seeing through a cloudy glass, right? So the cloudy glass right now is it's over. And so now I'm waddling in my own feelings as opposed to looking at it for what it is and saying, okay, how do I move forward? Am I a Division I, Division II, Division III, or NAIA player? And being honest with yourself, like that's the piece that I think many of my student athletes struggle with it, because we have so many people telling us how great we are that we never really think and like, man, like what level of play can I really play at? And then once I know that, then as I'm looking at colleges possibly for what my major is, then I'm also looking at, okay, I'm gonna reach out to this coach right here because I think I can play at this Division I or this Division II or this Division III school. I can walk on at worst case scenario, right? By the way, they also have the major I want to major in. So why not reach out to that coach and say, hey, my name is Aiden. I'm a football player at X, Y, and Z. I'm thinking about, walking on at your school next year. I've already been admitted because I did my Common App, and I just want to now see if there's an opportunity to do that. How would you advise me? You never know what happens from there. The same thing goes for your friends, like telling them the same thing. Hey, by the way, man, like keep grinding, keep working. Because guess what? Opportunity may come again. And if you haven't worked, guess what? It will pass you by. And that side is the reality, because opportunity presents itself all the time. The reality is most people aren't ready when it comes and they miss it. And then now they live in, I call it the worst place ever, called regret. Like, man, I wish I would have been ready when this came. And now they're like, hey, I should have listened to you. And you're like, I know, I'm trying to tell you.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
No problem, man. Pleasure meeting you.
You too.
Aiden, thanks. Carly, section 11, we'll have you go next. We'll put Abby on deck after that. So Carly, all yours.
Hi, Mr. Pearson. It's an honor to meet you.
Likewise.
I play soccer, lacrosse, and basketball.
Soccer, lacrosse,
My question for you is.
I'm sorry. I'm thinking about the
My
combination.
question for you.
I'm sorry. I got a question for you, Carly. So that means you're a very physical basketball player, because you put soccer, lacrosse, and basketball. That means you're a punisher on the court.
I play point guard, so.
And you bully other point guards, I'm guessing.
I hope. My question for you is, what small daily goals can we strive to achieve to not only help ourselves become better people, but to have a more positive mindset?
So small goals lead to big goals, right? So the smaller the goal, the easier it is to attain it. So I heard a professional speaker say one time, make a goal of making your bed every day, because that's at least one positive thing you did every day, right? So it's very simple. Like I tell my high school students, make a goal to brush your teeth every day, because some of you all's breath smell horrible, right? So like when I say that, like the small goals are very easy to attain. I can have a goal of becoming a millionaire, but the reality of becoming a millionaire overnight is very rare. I may hit the lottery, may not ever hit the lottery, right? But so having those small attainable goals, like I had a B- in the class last semester. I want to have a B in the class this semester. I wanted to have an A. I had an A-. I want to have an A. Those goals are easy to attain because now you're just making small tweaks into your daily lifestyle to reach it. And I think if you begin writing out your goals on paper, I tell people to write your goals in number 10 and progressively make them more difficult, right? So my first goal, make my bed every day. And my 10th goal could be, I want to graduate from college summa cum laude, because you haven't even got to college yet. But at the same time, the steps you can take from 1 can ultimately affect how you get to 10, right? And each one of those goals are pieces that you can celebrate. Like no one ever says, I want to lose 100 pounds overnight, but they can say, you know what, I want to lose this 100 pounds over the next 5 years. And this is my goal to do it, and create a realistic plan to attach to it, that it now becomes a realistic goal to go after. And so for you, we really think through what your goals are, think about what you want to do, and dream big. Like I tell everyone, do not be afraid to not make a goal. Like dream so big that even when you miss your goal, you're still so far above other people. Like have big dreams, have big goals. and then think about and surround yourself with people who can help you create realistic plans to get there. So now that you're working out there, you're grinding, and you will look back and be like, wow, I actually got here. Like, that's amazing. You won't appreciate it in the moment, because in the moment you're like, I want my goal. I want my goal now. But at the same time, you will be very grateful that you had big goals.
Okay, thank you so much. Means a lot.
Pleasure to meet you.
Carly, thanks. Abby, we'll do Abby from section 7 now. We'll put Afia on deck. So Abby, if you want to go ahead and go, I'll let you have your time. Go for it.
Awesome, thank you. Hi, it's nice to meet you, Mr. Pearson.
Likewise, Abby.
I play basketball and soccer.
And soccer. So you're in shape every season.
Yes. So my question is, how do you stay positive and keep pushing when nothing seems to be going the right way?
Very difficult. So story, I'll give you a quick story. So I ended up going to prep school in North Bridgeton, Maine at Bridgeton Academy. And while I was at Bridgeton Academy, I had planned on, I'm gonna go to Bridgeton Academy and I'm gonna have all the high majors recruiting after me. And it just didn't work that way. I had mid to low major Division I's offering, which is still, looking back on it, like I was very arrogant and like not very grateful. I was, I guess, a student athlete at that time. And so I never really appreciated it. And I was just like wallowing in my own self-pity. And I still don't understand why I was upset. But I kept working. And so I did another prep year at a school in Pennsylvania. And in that prep year, every school I wanted to recruit me in Bridgeton Academy did. And the reason I share that with you is that things may not happen when you want them to happen, but if you stick to your plan, you keep putting your work in, good things tend to happen. How they happen, that's beyond my natural understanding. I'm still trying to figure out why I didn't get the schools in Maine that I got in Pennsylvania. Whatever that was, I don't know, maybe the coaches didn't want to go to Maine. I don't know what it was, but it occurred. And I had to fight through it. And I'll be real with you too. There were days that I quit, a lot of days. The positive thing of it is back to my team. I called my grandmother up, Grandma, I quit. I'm coming home. I don't like Maine. It's cold. There's nothing outside. It's freezing. I'm in the middle of nowhere. Like, I have my whole little pity party. And she wouldn't say a word. She would be quiet and listen. And then when I finished, she was like, well, what's your dream? I'm like, what you mean, what's my dream? You know what my dream is. I'm all in my feelings. And she would laugh at me and be like, okay, what's your plan? Like, I'm like I don't want to think about a plan. I want to do what I want to do. Like, I want to like, it's all of that stuff. But having someone bring me back to reality was extremely important. So when things aren't going well, you need someone who can snap you back to reality to show you how blessed you really are.
That's great. Thank you for sharing the story.
No problem.
Thank
Abby,
you.
thanks. Appreciate it. We'll go to Afia next. That'll put Trent from section 10 on deck. So Afia, I'll have you go now.
You're muted. Oh, there we go.
I couldn't get it to work. Hi, Mr. Pearson. It's a pleasure to meet you, and I play volleyball, basketball, and I run track as well. My question for you was, after watching all your videos, I want to know, like, after all of your speeches and presentations that you've done, what is like the main message you want to leave your audience with, like, every single time, no matter like what you're really like talking about, you know?
Yeah, no, it's a great thing. So it's always about dreaming, right? Because a goal without a plan becomes nothing more than a wish or a fantasy, right? So I want every last one of you knowing that you can dream, right? But it has to be realistic. It has to have a plan. I can say I want to be an A student, but if I don't study, how realistic is my dream, right? If I say I want to be a doctor, but yet I don't like the sight of blood, how real is my dream? Like, so whatever you have, whatever your dream is, it has to come with a realistic plan. And you have to begin finding people who have gone before you, because wisdom comes from experience. You can have book knowledge all you want, but until you know how to apply it, it means nothing. If I want to learn about marketing, guess what? I'm going to reach out to Chris and say, Chris, educate me on this piece right here. How can I market to, schools? Because he's been doing it and he's going to have a level of education. I can watch a million YouTube videos and that's great, but they would never be able to amount to his experience. So having people who know what they're talking about and creating realistic plans is what I hope people begin to get from whatever I get.
Thank you so much.
No
it was a pleasure
problem.
meeting you once again.
Likewise, appreciate it.
Thanks, Afia. All right, so Trent from section 10, you're up now. We'll put Shelby on deck. Shelby from section 4, you're on deck. Trent, go ahead.
Trent, you got to be a football player. Football or wrestling. I can tell girls is hard for me to tell unless you're
I'm a hooper, actually. I
like the
was,
big,
what'd you say?
y'all like the strongest looking hoopers ever. I was like a $180. Like, come on.
I don't know. So my question for you is, I know everyone in this call, including you, obviously, have always been leaders of the teams you've been on. How would I go about, say, if I had a teammate who's just not getting maybe the playing time they want, and they're just not really that happy with the season? How do I go about encouraging him or her to stay on the team without pushing the boundaries too much?
So I will tell you this. One, I wasn't always a leader. And I got to start with that piece. Matter of fact, I was probably a follower first. And now looking back in hindsight, the best leaders I know were once followers, right? Because you learn from others that's gone before you. So as a freshman, I watched how seniors did what they did, and what I like, I kept. What I didn't like, I didn't apply, right? So that's the first piece. I think leadership is developed over time. And your leadership qualities will be by you taking what you see and what you like in others and applying it to who you are, because you're uniquely different. And your style may be completely different from leadership and everyone else. The other piece is, if you're my friend, so there's two components. Like, if you're my friend, that means you're like my brother. And if you're my brother, it's my responsibility to be honest with you, sometimes brutally honest. And when I say that, I'm not from a discouraging, trying to make you feel bad standpoint, but from a standpoint of like, dude, let's do this together, let's go. And there is no boundary that I'm not going to cross to make sure that you understand that, one, I love and appreciate you, but two, at the same time, like, yo, we in this together. Yeah, you may not be playing, but you're just as important as everyone else. Because at the end of the day, last time I checked, we all get rings together if we win the conference or the state tournament, whatever it may be. Also, I will say this too, and my father-in-law told me this, and as I get older, I'm starting to realize more and more. The older you get, the better you were. So when you're on a team, no one ever will look back unless they were on a team with you and be like, how much did you average? No one's gonna ask a 50-year-old person that. At 50, you can be like, I was all conference, all state, I was nice, triple double. Like, and everybody like, dude, you suck. But you look at the book. You see me on the roster, right? I'm on the team. So, like, with that being said, that's something that you can't erase. When you're a part of a team, that's a part of a family. That's a bond in which you will never be able to replace. Those are connections in which you will have for the rest of your life. And many of my high school teammates, to this day, we still communicate. It's a little different than it used to be. But when we get on the phone, when we do talk, we're cracking jokes and talking about people and bringing up old stories, and it's fun. Those are memories, I think, that you're building right now. And it's very hard to see that when you're in the moment, because you have an idea of where you hope the sport to take you. All you can control is your effort. So with your friends, share with them, hey, keep working hard, keep doing your best. You give your best, the rest is up to my man upstairs. But if you're giving your best, you're grinding, you're doing everything you can, that's all you could ever ask for. More importantly, I wouldn't know what to do if you weren't around. I wouldn't have nobody to pick on, right? So it's a joke in there, because if you went on the team, I couldn't dominate somebody in practice, or some way to make it light after you say it. But putting just with seriousness tends to make a great conversation.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Thanks, Trent. Appreciate it. Go to Shelby now in section 4. That'll put Dolce up on deck in section 9. Kristen put it in the chat as we're getting kind of past the halfway mark and towards the end. If you have a question, now's the time. Don't wait. So let's go ahead and go to Shelby now, and then Dolce, you're on deck.
Hi, I'm Shelby. Volleyball, softball, and basketball. And my question is, how do you know if someone is looking at you as like a mentor, like even if you might not be like the team captain or something, like just looking at you as like a role model, as someone on a team?
So one, I will say we're all mentors and we're all leaders to someone. Just most of the time we don't realize it, because if you have little brothers and sisters, you know exactly what I mean, right? And your little brother and sister will never tell you that you're their mentor and they look up to you. Matter of fact, they will annoy you to death. But at the same time, you will find that they will gravitate to the sports in which you play. right? You'll find in time they watch similar shows as you. You'll find in time they have different quirks that are similar to you. Like, dude, like, stop trying to be like me, right? And it's not that they're trying to be like you, it's that they look up to you. With your teammates, many times we try to be so uniquely different from our teammates, but there are positive qualities that are worth imitating. So if I have a teammate who grinds and works their butt off, why should I not follow that sequence, right? So if I'm going to go to the gym and get my shots up, I'm going to ask one of my teammates who may not be as good as me or whatever, I'm like, yo, come to the gym, let's work out together. Because that in itself is an opportunity. And so oftentimes when you see people gravitating to you, that's a telltale sign of them looking up to you. They may not ever say it verbally. You're going as a softball player, you're going to the batting cages, and all of a sudden you have a teammate saying, hey, can I go to the batting cages with you? Which one you're going to? Or which batting cage? And so a lot of times we want a competitive advantage and we don't want to share that. Like, why am I telling you where I work out at? But it's really because they think that you're good at something and they want to be like you per se. And I think that's a really easy way to see it.
Good.
Oh, you're still muted.
There you go, Shelby.
Oh, yeah, I was muted. Thank you so much. It was nice to meet you.
Likewise, pleasure.
Okay, so go section 9, Dolce now. I'll ask the next question on behalf of Jenna, who's on the phone traveling, but we'll go Dolce next, and then I've got one for you that comes remote.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm trying to figure this out. Hold on one second.
No problem.
Let's see here.
If we got to go sans video, we can. You can fire your question off and then turn your camera on. Whatever you want to do, it's up to you. Dolce, did we lose you or are you still with us? Oh, she's back. Give her half a second.
There we go.
Reconnect.
No problem.
And if not, we'll circle back. I got one waiting on deck and we can always do it that way. We're here. We're here. You go ahead when you're ready.
Hi,
Hey.
nice to meet you. How you doing? My question to you is, we're in such unprecedented times. No one's really been through this before. And it can be very discouraging for a lot of people, especially like when I try to encourage people, they're like, well, no one's really been through this. So how can you really tell me to go through it when you haven't been through it yourself, kind of? So I guess my question to you is, how would you recommend us as leaders and mentors of our community to be a sense of motivation and encouragement for people?
So one, they're completely right. So you got to give credit what credit's due, right? You're telling me something that's completely true. You're right. We've never been through this before, but the reality of it is tough times don't last, but tough people do, right? So yeah, you right. I've never experienced this ever in my life, but at the same time, I know that you're more than capable of getting through it if you have the right mentality. So if you want to make it through and you want to use this, and let's use this to get better. Let's use this opportunity to get better. Because I will tell you all this, what I have seen across the country, there have been some individuals who this has been really, really trying mentally. They just really, it's a break from what they've experienced, and it was very difficult for them to get through. But then there's other individuals who are now thriving academically because of the distance education. So it's two different extremes, but both are occurring and both are true, right? So at that person, when you're dealing with them, encourage them. But I will also say this, man, like a lot of times people have to be in a position to receive what you're saying. And if they're not ready to receive what you're saying, you can only share it and let it go, right? You can't try to push it, because if I don't want to hear what you're saying, I just don't want to hear what you're saying. It's the same way when you're mad. Think about when you're mad and when someone wants to come tell you something and you're mad. How receptive are you to hearing what they're saying, right? You don't want to hear it. But later on that day, when you calm down and you're reflecting on what they're saying, you're like, dang, that actually might be right. You're like, okay. So it's the same thing with them. Keep encouraging them. Yeah, they're going to say what they're doing. Share your 2 bits of encouragement and keep it moving. What you don't want to do is get into a debate with someone who doesn't want to receive what you're saying at that time.
Thank you.
No problem. Great question.
Great job. So Jenna Halpin is from Section 8, which is Long Island in our state. So she's on the road right now, but her question is specifically geared towards you, Omari, and the whole video that you did that was focused on what's your why. Her question for you is, when you were in high school, what was your why? Why did you want to do what you did, and what was your purpose?
So at that time, I wanted to be a Division I athlete once I realized what a Division I athlete was. Prior to my junior year of high school, to be very frank with you, I had no idea what a Division I athlete was. I planned on going to the Army. And so growing a foot in a year kind of changed my life, literally. And my why became going to college. Like, I just want to get to college. Like, I don't know how I'm gonna do this. I didn't know what the NCAA was. I didn't know what the clearinghouse was. I didn't know what prep schools were. Heck, I didn't even really understand what AAU was. I knew the Boys and Girls Club and the YMCA leagues, but I never knew what AAU was. And so all of those different factors, as I began getting myself in a different group of people, began helping me understand and also beginning to create a plan. Even though I never wrote that plan out, I had enough people around me who were smart enough to help direct me to get to where my goal was.
So put Zach up now and Cameron on deck. So Zach from Section 3, I'll have you ask the question to Omari, but Omari, this will be geared towards kind of, where you've gone in life, and obviously the passion to purpose that you've created. And I know before we had an earlier conversation, you and I and Kristen had talked about people asking you, how did you do what you did? And I think Zach is curious about that. So Zach, go ahead.
Hey, Omari. I'm Zach from Section 3. I play soccer, track, and baseball. And my question for you is, what does your everyday routine look like owning your own business?
Whew. So one of my mentors told me before I got into this entrepreneurship thing, you work 18 hours a day to keep from getting a 9 to 5. I'm going to say that again. As an entrepreneur, you work 18 hours a day to keep from getting a 9 to 5. Right? So there really are no hours. So if Kristen sent me a message right now and said, Omari, I need you to speak with our students tomorrow, I'm going to say, what time? And I got to figure out a way to do it, right? Because at the end of the day, my clients are the people in which I have to report to. Like, people say, well, I report to no one. That's not true. As an entrepreneur, your clients are the people who you report to. If they need you, then you got to figure it out. If I get a call at 1 o'clock in the morning from North Carolina, one of my high schools saying, can you speak at 7:30 in the morning? I have to figure out a way to do it if it's feasible and realistic. And so my schedule right now, to be very real with you, it's extremely structured. 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm up. My 5 to 5:30 is really just me getting myself mentally prepared. I call it my meditation time and prayer time. From there, I'm in the gym by 6. From 6 to 7, I'm working out. Then I'm getting back at home because of distance, and I work with certain high schools throughout the day. Then about 2 o'clock, we end my day, and then I'm now meeting with different states across the United States. So different schools in Indiana, Hawaii, Texas, and I'm working with them. And my schedule is normally planned out at least 30 to 60 days in advance. I will tell you, initially, when I first started my business, I had no schedule whatsoever. I literally went by the seat of my pants and just like, okay, that's cool. I'm gonna put them down now. But now I've grown, and it's been a blessing. Now I think I'm at about 120 schools. And so that blessing has allowed me to really be strategic in how I do what I do. And that I have to be very structured and organized, because if not, oh my gosh, this will overwhelm me very, very quickly.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. I appreciate it.
No problem at all. You thinking about being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, maybe. I'm going into the business field, so it's an option. I'm thinking,
Remember, 18 hours a day to keep from getting a 9 to 5.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Zach, thanks. I appreciate it. Cameron is the last question that we have in the chat, but we're not done yet, but we'll just wrap up the chat portion on this. We'll go to Cameron from Section 2, then we've got some other stuff. So Cameron, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Cameron from Section 2, and I play basketball and baseball. You've talked about a lot like leadership, and I was just wondering what some common misconceptions people have about being a leader. have?
Oh, oof, that's a good question, Cameron. Like the flag behind you too. So it's interesting, man. Like I think there are so many misconceptions about leadership. One, everyone thinks it's a one shoe fits all, right? And it doesn't exist. Like there is no, I can't clone leaders, right? Think about and you think about the people in which you've had on different teams. You can have leaders who say nothing. You can have leaders who lead by example. You can have leaders who lead by bad example, meaning like they're bad leaders, like they're horrible. Like everything they do, you're like, I will never do that, right? That leadership that's told you what not to do, right? And so each one of those different people bring different things to the table, and how you take that, add that, tweak that to fit you works for you, right? And once you find, I tell them, once you find your rhythm to this game called life, then now you are basically applying your principles, your values, your skill set, and your uniqueness to who you were created to be, right? As a leader, your way of leading is specific to how you do things, right? So Cameron does things like this. I may do things like this, and we could be both right, or we could be both wrong. And so understanding that I think is extremely important. But more importantly, I think the best thing that you could ever work on is authenticity as a leader. Be authentic to who you are. Don't try to be like someone else, be you. So if you're a talkative person like me, talk to and just make friends with people. If you're not a talkative person, then hey, you don't have to. Be like Kawhi Leonard and just do all your work on the court, right? You don't say nothing but hee hee, laugh, and that's it, right? But whatever is you, be authentic to you.
Thank you. It was really nice to meet you.
Pleasure, pleasure.
All right, Cam, thanks. We've got people who are on the phone, Omari, who can't utilize the chat and obviously don't have the camera feature. We had a few people call in. I'll just kind of throw a blanket statement out there now. Is there anybody participating via the phone who would like to ask a question of Omari? We'll just kind of open it up, and now's your time. So any phone callers that want to participate? Okay, so hearing none over the phone, Kristen is with us and has a couple things. She's got a couple kids who I think have either relayed messages through her or have talked to her or had some communication directly with the kids. So we'll turn it over to Kristen.
Hi, Omari. You know, I've been thinking about a lot of the kids were wondering about your business, and they, I think, enjoy listening to you and things like that. And COVID-19 has affected everybody in a lot of different ways. One person did ask me, how has COVID-19 affected Passion to Purpose and what you do?
Man, so COVID-19, I'm in Boston. It hits March, like the second week or the first week of March, at least when everything started shutting down. I'm in Boston for their state basketball tournament. I'm speaking with students in Boston City with Pete and the MIAA. And he tells me on Thursday, we're not going to meet with schools on Friday. And so I'm like, what's going on? I see the COVID thing. I'm like, okay, cool. So in my mind, I'm like, this is going to be 2 weeks and we're done. I fly back home. Within, I want to say by the end of March, I had lost 36 contracts. And without going into too much detail, they were pretty large contracts, right? So the funny part of it is that as an entrepreneur, you prepare for the unexpected. I was not prepared to lose 36 contracts in 2 weeks. But the blessing was this, though. I had that up until that point, I had been doing adjunct professor work at Brooklyn College, and I hadn't did any online stuff until that point. And so I reached out to a couple of my partners and said, hey, would you be interested in me doing some distance education stuff? It was like, no, we don't know what's going on. We lost the state tournament here. We lost this, we lost this. And so I was like, okay. But in business, what you all will understand, and this is something I think that's a tremendous value for you all as student athletes, how you handle when things don't go your way speaks more volumes of how you handle things when things go your way. So how you treat someone when you're pissed at them speaks more about you than it does them. And so in that, I was disappointed, obviously, because I'm hoping the partner's like, yeah, Omari, I got you. Because in my mind, I'm like, oh my God, 36 contracts. Oh my God. But I stayed cool. I was like, I get it. You know, whenever you get a chance, let me know. Fast forward, I kid you not, 1 week they all start calling. And not only did the state association start calling, schools start calling me because the state associations recommended me. So I lost 36 contracts by the end of March. By the end of April, I had picked up 74 contracts. And it was so crazy because I was just sitting there like, I don't have to fly. I don't have to get on the train. I don't have to drive. I'm like, oh my God, that was a blessing. And so from this, I will say COVID has created a whole new stream of business for me. Even when COVID's gone, there will be still some clients that prefer this component just because it allows people to do this like we're doing now from the comfort of your own home. And logistically, it's just an easier, simpler plug and play. And so I'm grateful. I wasn't grateful at the end of March. I will tell you that now. Very honest and transparent. But now in hindsight, I was able to adapt and I was able to have enough partners who believed in what I was trying to do to help me. And I'm extremely and eternally grateful for that.
Thank you.
No problem.
Omari, as we get to the end, I kind of wanted to leave it on this note because I think you have a firsthand appreciation for it, and you obviously see it with your interactions, and I think to some degree Kristen and I do as well, dealing with student athletes. When you get to be an adult at some point in your life, as you're a storyteller, you meet people who always have one-upsmanship, right? They always have the next story to top you, to up you. You know, for good or for bad, if you were a student athlete in the class of 2020 or the class of 2021, nothing can top this, and probably more for bad than for good. But I'll say this, Omari, and I just want to get your thoughts on it. I don't think a lot of people understand what these kids are going through or have gone through. It will strengthen you more than you will ever know what has happened this last year and probably 18 months.
I agree with you, man. I mean, it's when I say my heart goes out for you, I'm not just saying it in tongue in cheek just because it sounds like a great thing. As one of the student athletes said, you know, when her friend tells her, well, you've never experienced this, that's real. Like, I've never experienced this. I couldn't have imagined my senior year just stopping, like not like slow cruise stop, like just over. My heart would be broke. I would be frustrated. I'd probably be venting with my grandmother and get knocked out by my grandmother. Like, it would be so many things that would have happened in that moment. But what I will say is this: I'm an optimist by nature. That's just who I am. I'm just that type of guy. I'm not really a pessimist in anything. And so as I look at this, I say, well, shucks. On the flip side, my half a glass of water, I'm learning how to adapt, which I think is the most crucial component to this life on this earth. Because what will always happen is change. As long as you live on this earth, there will be change. You get change when you get married. You got change when you have kids. You got change because you may have to move to a new job. You have change when you change locations. You got change when people from your job leave and you got new colleagues. You have change in so many different aspects. And your ability to adapt, adjust, and transition will normally affect how you live and how you enjoy your time here. I know it doesn't feel like it. I can't speak to what you're feeling. But what I will tell you is this: use this opportunity to maximize your time. Use this opportunity to grow. And if you can keep yourself busy, it can keep this piece busy. Because the strongest muscle in your body is your brain. And oftentimes, if you don't control it, it will control you. Don't allow your emotions to be the dictator of what you do. Allow your passions and your purpose to control you and push you into the direction where you want to be at. And see yourself not just today, but where you will be in the next 5 years.
Well, and I think that's a perfect message to end on. So we want to let everybody know we'll post this question and answer session just like we always do on the association website, on our YouTube page. We'll share it out with everybody as well. If you haven't watched the previous Captains Club videos with Omari, with Passion to Purpose, please go back and watch them. Honestly, even if you have, it's worth a rewatch, because even I, not in the same position student athletes are in high school right now, I learned a little something too. So I think anybody can take something from these videos. Omari, always a pleasure. Great to have you. Thanks for this partnership, and it was great this year. It really, really was.
I appreciate you all. Thank you so much for having me. And everyone on here, man, thank you so much for your time. Like I said, the most valuable commodity we have is our time, and I appreciate you giving me yours.
All right, everybody out there, stay safe. Thanks for being with us, and we'll see y'all soon, okay? Take care,
Thanks,
everybody.
guys. Thank you, Omari.
Have a good one,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
You all have meetings So I'll talk to you, Kristen and Chris, later.
Sounds good.